What's going on, fight fans? I'm back here with another video here set for you guys. Gonna be talking about and giving my recap and reaction of the UFC Fight Night Mexico City card that just got done with. And pretty decent card. A lot better than what the UFC London card. I wouldn't say as much as big names as it was on the UFC London card, but thankfully we got a lot more finishes. And starting with the first fight that started off the card, it was Markel Medeiros versus Austin Hubbard. This was a very, I would say, kind of controversial fight in my honest opinion. Very, very close between these two guys. In the first round, I think Marco Medeiros got that first round. I think he did the better job on the feet, was a lot more crisp, was moving along laterally very well. Even though Austin Hubbard did have some moments where he did land a few nice shots, like a spinning back kick to the body, got some work into the clinch, potentially getting into a takedown towards the end of the first round. Didn't really get to succeed, but then goes into the second round. Honestly, 100% Austin Hubbard got that round for sure. Starts to really threaten with the hands, make Markel Medeiros really respect him on the feet, and once he does so, I believe there was a knee up the middle for Austin Hubbard that really not shook up Medeiros, but had him worried. Like, okay, damn, there's actually something that I have to be worried about. That something's going to be coming my way. And then Austin Hubbard then fiends and goes in for a takedown. And while he is going for a takedown, doesn't get the success of it so far, but then it just gets wrapped up on top while Medeiros is standing upright and Austin Hubbard is just on his back, just grueling. I mean, it is a very grueling task to be able to keep 100 and something pound man on your back, and you're just standing there, and he's over there fighting for submissions, hitting with some shots over the top, and then he finally gets the takedown because it goes to the ground, and Austin Hubbard is, fishing for submissions. He almost has a rear naked choke in, almost, and definitely clearly takes that second round 100%. You move into the third round. Austin Herbert gets a takedown, gets control of like literally 2 minutes and 30 seconds, maybe 3 minutes of the round. Doesn't really do much of anything of note, but he does have the control and was in dominant position for the majority of the round. But then Medeiros kind of reverses position, lands a nice elbow on the side of the head of Austin Hubbard, cuts him up open. There's some shots, here and there on the feet. My honest opinion, if I were to go with anybody, I probably would have went with Austin Hubbard in this fight, but I understand why they went with Medeiros. But it was really just towards the end of the fight, it was really sloppy. Not much to be able to take of note. If you want to say Austin Herbert got robbed, I completely understand where you're coming from. But at the end of the day, it was just, it was whatever. And moving up the card, we had Jamal Emmers versus Gabriel Medina. And finally, thankfully, we get back to some violence and some action. Jamal Emmers and Gabriel Medina start off crazy on the feet. They start to really get to a lot of exchanges, and Gabriel Medina then fishes in for a takedown, gets the takedown, has some control, threatens with some submissions here and there, but Emmers is able to reverse position, get out, and get back on the feet. And while it's just clear that Miranda, there's no way for him to be able to get out this fight alive unless he somehow takes the fight back on the ground and gets a submission. But honestly, it was what it needed to be, and that was a Jamal Emmers finish. He gets right where he needs to be able to go, lands nasty right hands over the top of Gabriel Medina, really hurting him. Very chinny. Miranda, for somehow, some way, being a fighter of his caliber, is still keeping his head up and his chin right up where to be able to hit. And it was just sad to be able to see. But thankfully, after that, as soon as a few nasty right hands that Jamal Emmers has landed, he lands a nice, nasty clinch in elbow. Hurts and kind of wobbles Miranda again. Another right hand then lands for Emmers and a knee right up the middle. And a few ground and pound shots ends the night for Gabriel Miranda. And we have Jamal Emmers back into the win column. Got that prediction right, so we're 1-0 so far on the card. And thankfully for me, I got my prediction for that one right. Moving on up the card, we had Rafa Garcia versus Vint Pichel. Another fight on this card that I got correct, but honestly, I wish I didn't. I went the other way. I think the first round for sure, if we look at this fight, I think Rafa Garcia was doing a lot better. I think he landed a nice 1-2 right down the pipe on Vince Pinchel that really hurt him badly, had him wobbled and moving all over the place. He was kept landing nice right hands over the top throughout the entirety of the round and having nice pressure on Vince Pinchel. But in my honest opinion, man, I think Vince Pinchel 100% got robbed in this fight, man. I think the 42-year-old wily vet somehow, some way pulled it off against a Mexican in Mexico, but of course, it didn't turn out to be that way. Moving into the second round, Rafa Garcia is then pressing again. He still lands some nice right hands over the top, and he's having shots that are having some effect on Vink Pichel. But Pichel is actually getting some work in, and he's working really well. The teep right up the middle, inside low kicks, outside low kicks, the jab, whether it be in the southpaw or orthodox stance, was landing over and over again. The volume was just starting to consume over Rafa Garcia. I think that second round was definitely taken for Vince. And then you move on to the third round, and similar things that I can be able to say from the second round. But Rafa Garcia came out a little bit more on fire, a little bit more reinvigorated to be able to take over the round. But again, he had his bursts of energy. He had his moments. He did land some nice shots. But overall, throughout the majority of that fight, I did think, and especially that round, that being the third, Vink Pichel did the better of the work. He was still calm and composed, under fire. Was still landing his shots that he was continuous to land. That teep up the middle was money for him. Inside low kicks, outside low kicks. The kickboxing was absolutely tremendous by him, and I think he did get robbed, 100%. I think he should have came out the victor. I 100% understand why he did not. They were in Mexico City. A Mexican like Rafa Garcia was in the building. They want to be able to get these Mexican fighters up on the road and be able to have that community, have that area that they can be able to go to and say that, yeah, we have a lot of a collection of Mexican fighters that we can be able to put out forefront for our company, and whatever the case may be. And yeah, Rafa Garcia was bringing a lot of the pressure. He did come forward a lot. He was, being the bull to Vink Pichel's matador. But I just think that Vink Pichel just outlanded him, outfoxed him. The Wily vet still has something left in him. And yeah, I think he should have came out the victor. But anyways, it is what it is. Moving on up the card, we had Lupi Godinez versus Julia Palostri. And man, has WMMA been on a hot streak. I don't know what's in the water for these women and their women fights. I don't know if they came in as a collective and just came together and was like, you know what, we're not going to be putting on boring fights anymore. We're actually going to be going toe-to-toe and give each other some type of wars and be very entertaining and violent in these fights. And they absolutely wore. In this one, it was 100%. First, round two and round one, you have to give to Godinez. The striking just looked more on point for Lupi. Her boxing was absolutely tremendous. She looked to outpoint and outstrike Julia throughout those rounds. And then not only that, she continually got the takedowns, looking like Habib Godinez in there, Gonzalez off, Godinez off. She was absolutely tremendous. She didn't really get a lot of jiu-jitsu or continue grappling to then fish for submissions, but she just continuously got a lot of takedowns out of Julia Polistri, excuse me. So yeah, Lupi was looking absolutely great those first two rounds. She was in her groove and on a roll. Then moving into the third round, it was a complete stand-up fight, and Julia Polistri was on a roll. She was fishing the best way she could possible to be able to get a knockout, get a knockdown, try to be able to even up the odds. She had to know that she was down on the cards, and she was just putting in work, putting in pain. It was absolutely great to be able to see that. And Lupi, man, the chin on that gal was absolutely tremendous. I mean, the punishment that she took, and as well as she dished out, because Lupi was landing some great shots of her own as well on Julia. But I think Julia definitely had the better work and output in that round, that being the third. But overall, of course, Lupi Godinez gets the dub, 2-1, 100% against Julia Palostri. And moving on up the card, we go from an absolute barn burner between these two ladies to an absolute snooze fest with the dudes. We have Christian Rodriguez versus Mequiazel Acosta. I got this one wrong. First fight on this card that I got a fight wrong in my prediction video. Yeah, this fight was very boring. Honestly, I don't care who won. Third round, 100%, I have to give to Christian Rodriguez. Got the takedowns, got the top control, landed some ground and pound. I think he did the better work with the striking, but the first and second round was just Man, it was rough to be able to go through it. A lot of clinch work in the first, a lot of reverse position, not much striking or anything word note of damage. Same thing you can say for the second round. Costa comes out with the victory. I don't really care, and it was whatever. Moving on up the card, we had Jose Daniel Medina versus Atiba Gatir. Another fight that I got right on this card. I'm going to be tallying up my victories because I really need to, especially coming off that UFC London card where I literally got one fight right out of like 9 or 10 that I predicted, which was absolutely insane. But finally, I got what I wanted, the body bag on the canvas of Jose Daniel Medina. Last time out, he was an absolute heavy bag for Zachary Reese. And Atiba Gatir making his UFC debut looking like an absolute chiseled freaking statue out there, man. His footwork, his game plan, his just overall skills and ability. He looks really, really crisp out there. I don't know if he's actually going to be something in the middleweight division. Maybe with some experience, he can be able to get into the rankings maybe later in his career. But for what he is as of right now, especially against Jose Daniel Medina, who's literally just a heavy bag, then turned into a body bag here tonight, it was absolutely great to be able to see. Jose Daniel Medina, the best thing about him is that he has a chin. He has shots that he can be able to take that honestly other people, they get hit on the chin that have better skill, better technical ability, and they get put out. And Jose Daniel Medina doesn't have any of those, so the only thing that he does have is the chin. And finally, he got checked. But it didn't just get checked by a shot or any punches. There was a lot of shots, a lot of punches, especially the jab, right hand down the pipe that Jose Daniel Medina somehow, some way was eating. But thankfully, there was a right hand right down the middle, right into a knee that just dropped Jose Daniel Medina badly out on the canvas. And thankfully, we got a TKO victory for Atiba Gatir. Fuck Jose Daniel Medina. He's in there because he's trash, but he just has a chin. That's literally about it. That's the only reason he has a UFC contract. Thankfully, that trash bag was left on the canvas in a loss. Now, moving on to the main card, we have Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Kevin Borjas. A lot of people are going to be calling this a fraud check. Huge upset, but not really. Ronaldo Rodriguez is, exciting. He has a lot of good techniques that he can be able to whip out, and it's flashy and whatnot. But in reality, he's really bad, and especially for the flyweight division, his technical ability is not going to fly the way that it has been, especially against the Ode Osborne fight where he won somehow, some way, which was very, very close and controversial in that fight that he had. And with Kevin Borjas, man, he just got exposed. The dude who has 2 losses already on his record in the UFC finally proves his point and gets the dub over Ronaldo Rodriguez in that first round. Man, a beautiful right hand you just seen continuously landing by Kevin Borjas. Borjas was actually doing really well with the counter punching, just waiting for his moments, knowing that Rodriguez is a very wild dude. He throws a lot of different techniques, but he's all over the place. There's not really much of a game plan for him. He's just out there having fun, trying to throw a lot of hard shots, and hopefully he can be able to catch you one and he's going to knock you out. Borjas took his time to be able to find his moment, and he obviously did. He landed a beautiful right hand on the chin. I thought knocked out Ronaldo Rodriguez out cold, but Ronaldo Rodriguez, shout out to him. The best thing about him, as well as Jose Daniel Medina, is his chin. He can be able to take a shot 100%. And continuously throughout that first round and throughout the entirety of the fight, Kevin Borjas was landing a beautiful straight right hand down the pipe by Ronaldo Rodriguez. So first round, 100%, you got to go Rodriguez. Second round, I went with Borjas. First round, you got to go with Borjas, excuse me. Second round, you move on. And it's pretty much just the same. Borjas and his output, even though it wasn't as great as it was in the first round, start to slimmer down. But again, he's continuously just landing this right hand over the top. Ronaldo Rodriguez is landing more outside low kicks that's kind of chewing up Kevin Borjas. So it's close and competitive, but I think the power, the ooh, the ah shots, Kevin Borjas is continuously landing. Third round, pretty much similar story of how it was the entirety of the fight, even though throughout the rest of the fight, one thing that you can be able to say is that Ronaldo Rodriguez was taking the right-hand shots a lot better, even though they were still landing very clean and very hard. His chin is just the best thing about him. If he can be able to get some technique and some good defense, because literally he doesn't even think about defense when he's in there, he can be a problem. But until then, the chin is going to be the best attribute that he has. And the technical ability was never really there. He's still a wild dude. Yeah, he's fun and entertaining, but to the par of him actually getting to a ranking, being a star or a name, it's not going to be that anytime soon. Moving on up the card, we have David Martinez versus Simon Oliveira. Another fight where it really just started off pretty badly. These two guys looked absolutely atrocious. But it wasn't okay. It was it was a pretty bad fight until the ending. Thank God we got an ending early on this fight. So I'll just go with that. The right hand down the pipe for David Martinez really hurt Simon Oliveira, and then you get the same similar thing to a Tiba Gautier where you get the knee right up the middle that literally just plants Simon Oliveira out cold on the canvas. Some nice ground and pound and pleasure for Simon Oliveira to get him some nice tacos after the fight. You know, he can enjoy that, but he's definitely not going to be enjoying a victory because he got himself knocked the fuck out. So good opportunity for David Martinez, his UFC debut. He's from Mexico City, being a Mexican, being in Mexico City and in Mexico, getting a KO victory in the first round against Simon Oliveira, who's pretty much whatever trash fighter, but he got the KO. He got the job done. He did what he needed to be able to do, and I was just really glad that that fight was over early. And moving on up the card to the future fight we had Raul Rosas Jr. versus Vince Morales. I went with Vince Morales in this one. I thought he was going to be able to do it. He damn near pulled it out in that third round. But in the first, we go and we talk about this first round. Raul Rosas Jr. looks a lot better on the feet, looks a lot more crisper, looks a lot more fluid with his technique and his confidence and how he's just throwing shots. So he definitely had Vince Morales a lot more worried, had him more on the back foot. And then Raul Rosas gets the takedown, has the control. Doesn't really threaten with the submissions because Vince Morales is very, very defensively aware and also as well pretty technically good with the jiu-jitsu. But Raul Rosas pretty much wins the round and because he had, taken the back, had the top control, did what he needed to be able to do to win the round. Same thing with the second round where Vince Morales is having a little bit more success on the feet, lands a nice right hand over the top to Raul Rosas Jr.'s, chinny chin chin, that pointy chin that he has. But Raul Rosas took it well. But then eventually they get into a takedown, and Raul Rosas then gets the takedown. Similar thing to the first round where has back control, has top control, not really threatening much with submissions, has a moment here and there where maybe Raul Rosas is maybe cinching in one, but nothing really of note to be able to say. But obviously Raul Rosas is getting the win because he's obviously winning the rounds, he's winning the positions. And then you move on to the third round where Vince Morales was a lot more forward front, landing a lot more shots on Raul Rosas Jr., backing up Raul Rosas Jr. a lot more. Raul Rosas then goes in for a takedown, gets stuffed, but then Vince Morales goes for like this Darce choke, this anaconda choke, where he has it cinched in. You see the face of Raul Rosas Jr. then getting real red. He's, clinching on his mouthpiece. He's biting down. He's not willing to be able to tap out to this submission. And he's gritting down really hard, and I'm actually really surprised. Then Raul Rosas then gets top control, takes the position, and then again towards the end of the third round, Vince Morales then cinches in the same similar choke that he had in earlier, where he had it, and he damn near got him out there again. He's had it cinched in. He had the face all red. But it was too little, too late for Vince Morales, and Raul Rosas Jr. comes out with the victory over Vince Morales. Pretty impressed by Raul Rosas Jr. Not really impressed like in terms of his grappling and wrestling because that's really what he's known for. But in terms of his striking, maybe he can be able to have more of that type of success if he goes up against somebody in the bantamweight division that is able to stuff his takedowns and keep things on the feet. I wonder how that will go. He looked a lot better than his previous fight on the feet, in my opinion, but he got more takedowns against a very tough competition in terms of Vince Morales. And we move on to the co-main event, and that was not the co-main event, the future fight which was supposed to be Joe Pyfer versus Kelvin Gastelum, but Joe Pyfer pulled out with an illness the same day that the fight was going to happen. So we now have Edgar Chairez versus CJ Vergara. And honestly, thankfully, we got an absolute great finish that we needed to be able to see. CJ Vergara had a little bit of success with the outside low kicks here and there against Edgar Shiraz, but not really much to be able to say of note because this got done real quick. But Edgar Shiraz then lands a beautiful left hook right on the button of CJ Vergara, hurts him badly, has him wobbled all over the place, and Edgar Shiraz keeps calm, keeps his composure, and then while he takes his shots very lightly and does exactly what he needs to be able to do, then takes the back and then gets the rear naked choke victory over CJ Vergara. Gets a nice callback, having the Mexican fighter in Mexico City, being emotional in that spot, getting that big victory, especially after the loss over Joshua Van, where he had a tremendous performance. It's nice to be able to see him get another nice victory in this type of fashion, knowing that he's able to get these type of finishes that he's capable of, and hopefully he can be able to get another entertaining fight next up for himself in the flyweight division. Now we actually move on to the co-main event, which was Manuel Torres versus Drew Dober, and similar to the future fight that we just talked about as of right now, it was pretty much all and over in just a moment's notice. Manuel Torres gets a tremendous victory over a great fighter. I'm not going to say great because he's not great, but he is a great fighter in terms of entertainment, violence, and also as well as, putting up a great fight. Drew Dober is there and has been there with one of the best. He's been in there against Islam, against Renato Moicano. He's been against a lot of fighters that's been in the rankings. He is a litmus test of how great of a fighter that you could be in the lightweight division, and Manuel Torres just lands a picture-perfect 1-2 right down the pipe on Drew Dober, hurts him badly, has him stung, and then Drew Dober is just there, just literally hanging on to his foot for dear life, and his life was then taken away from him because a stupid referee wasn't able to do his job, and that was take him away from the punishment that he was receiving because he received 15 additional ground strikes while he was considerably out. Referee, what are we doing? Do your job. You're not doing your job, ref. Mike Beltran, what the fuck were you thinking, brother? So then, this guy, Drew Dober, thankfully is still alive and he's okay. He's doing what he needs to be able to do to walk on his own 2 feet. But Manuel Torres is still a name, is still potentially having the hype train right back on him, even though after the Ignacio Bahamondes loss on his record. But look at Ignacio Bahamondes now. He's in the rankings. He's a dude that's young, promising, and up and coming. Was a bad matchup, in my opinion, for Manuel Torres. And now Manuel Torres could be able to get another victory of another guy that's, right just outside of the rankings again. I wouldn't do Ignacio Bahamondes again because they literally just fall like a fight ago. So maybe just another person. I mean, Jalen Turner has retired. Maybe you get number 15. Maybe you get somebody like a Bobby Green. Maybe you get somebody entertaining. Maybe like a Mauricio Huffy, somebody like that. Somebody with a name like that. Something entertaining that we can be able to feast on because, Manuel Torres and his style that he's able to fight, he's going to bring it, and he usually always does. And moving on to the main event, we had Brandon Moreno versus Steve Erceg. I can go round by round to give my synopsis of what happened throughout the entirety of the round by round basis of this fight. But the pretty much story of this fight was what I actually thought was going to be able to happen. Brandon Moreno just having more versatile offense, being more experienced compared to a fighter like Steve Erceg. And he did what he needed to be able to do to get the victory over a guy like a Steve Erceg, because Steve Erceg is really technical. He keeps everything, composed on the feet. He does really well. He lands a lot of volume, but he didn't have as much success that he had before against a lot of other fighters that he had previously. And that would being the step up of competition. That's what it brings is, you not performing the way that you normally perform against fighters that you have obviously an advantage over. And these guys, similar in reach, similar in height, but they weren't similar at all in terms of skill. I wouldn't say of skill, but in terms of experience, 100%. The right hand over the top by Brandon Moreno was landing at will. stung and hurt Steve Erceg, especially in that first round. Was landing, he landed like 4 or 5 of them in that first round. Really, just I wouldn't say rattling Steve Erceg, but putting it on the button to a point where we've seen him got hit by the button by Carecraft France and he went out cold. So seeing him be able to withstand that type of punishment and continue moving forward was really nice to be able to see by Steve Erceg. He was still landing his shots here and there. You move on to the second round. And while you move on to the second round, it's a lot more close, a lot more competitive. The volume is upping. There was a nice right hand right on the button, on the side of the head of Brandon Moreno, landed by Steve Erceg. That was really nice. I thought that hurt and wobbled Brandon Moreno a lot. But he took the shot well and he fired right back. But again, the right hands over the top was landing considerably over and over again by Brandon Moreno. It was just at home, and there was no answer defensively that Steve Erceg could be able to bring to be able to solve that problem. Moving on to the third round, I think Steve Erceg got that round. I think Brandon Moreno kind of took that round off. He let off the gas. There was moments here and there that he did very well. He had spurts, but throughout the entirety of the round, I think Steve Erceg took it, with that being his jab, his right hand. And again, he didn't land anything hard or anything flush to be able to really sting or hurt Brandon Moreno, but just the volume of just keeping Brandon Moreno busy throughout the entirety of the round, I think that will get him that. You move on to the fourth. Again, similar situation. I can say the same thing for the fifth round, where, again, Brandon Moreno will have his spurts. He will land his shots. He had Steve Erceg on the back foot the entirety of the fight. Whenever he was throwing a combination, the inside low kicks were money, as well as the right hand for Brandon Moreno. One thing I can say, though, that really just showed how much of a difference it was for Brandon Moreno and Steve Erceg was the defense. Now, the head movement was really well by Steve Erceg. He did move out of a lot of shots, and he did have the defensive awareness of keeping his hand up, especially after just suffering that knockout loss by Kaka France. But the defense by Brandon Moreno was just on another level. A lot of shots landed on the guard, landed on the arms, landed on the hand. The head movement of Brandon Moreno, who's looking like a mini Canelo out there, for being quite honest. The leg defense, especially to the leg kicks, I mean, he was just barely missing, barely whiffing. That being Steve Erceg a lot, so he couldn't be able to bank on anything because he wasn't landing his low kicks at all, and neither of any of his kicks as well, because Brandon Moreno was being defensively responsible and keeping his guard up whenever a kick was coming his way. The only really success that Steve Erceg had was, his jab. He had the teep, the front kick was landing effectively. He had the right hand, the rear hook that was landing from times. He landed a nice right hand that I said earlier. But besides that, I mean, Steve Erceg didn't really have much to be able to say that he was doing well. But again, it was a very competitive and technical fight that I did predict to a T, in my honest opinion. Steve Erceg definitely had a chance to be able to win this fight 100%. But I just thought that Brandon Moreno just had more to be able to offer compared to a Steve Erceg. So that actually, went the way that I believe it went. And, I kind of predicted it to a T. Thankfully, I got that one correct as well. But Brandon Moreno, man, it is a logjam in the flyweight division. They talked on the cast about how they're going to Guadalajara, Mexico for UFC Noche in September. So I expect Alexa Grasso, I expect Yair Rodriguez, Brandon Moreno, maybe a Brian Ortega. I expect all those dudes to be on that card 100%. That card is going to be stacked from head. Raul Rosas Jr. as well. Maybe a Edgar Chavez as well. Emmanuel Torres, if he continues, if he gets another fight before that UFC Noche card, he's obviously going to be on that card as well. There's going to be a lot of Mexican fighters that we're going to be able to see that, they have some good names. They are entertaining, and we want to see them in entertaining fights. So why not? Why not put it there? But yeah, that flyweight division is definitely in a log jam. That's a video that I'm definitely going to be talking about next time up. That I have a next UFC video that I'm going to be able to talk about, thankfully. But yeah, that was this card. Obviously, like this video if you obviously like this video. Comment your opinions on how this UFC card went. Do you think Vic Pichel got robbed? I 100% think he got robbed. As well as, what do you think how Brandon Moreno looked out there? And anything else that you want to be able to talk about this card. Subscribe, UFC fans, MMA fans. I'm here. throughout the entire year. You see me, I see you. You're watching. I know you're watching. And since you're watching and you want to watch more, subscribe. Because why not? Thank you guys again for watching again, and peace.